Welcome into another edition of the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined as always by Brian Perroni. Brian, how's everything been going?
Oh, good. Hopefully this week we don't end up having to have, an emergency second podcast as Jimbo and Saban, made us have last week. I have a feeling that'll probably come up even more a little bit today.
Yeah, I mean we've just woke up Thursday, and I had kind of seen the Jimbo Fisher comments and the Nick Saban comments from the night before, and like we mentioned last week, we just kind of thought we were in for a regular Thursday. Continue to do some recruiting updates, had some updates planned, and then all of a sudden, Jimbo Fisher comes out with that press conference, and it was the talk of the day. The rest of the day. I even going out to some spring games this weekend. Everybody was still talking about that press conference, and I guess everybody like you and I did kind of took it with more of a, some people had different opinions, but it was just kind of lighthearted, and some of the recruits we spoke with were laughing and kind of joked and said, "Man, that's true Jimbo to come out and defend his players like that." And everybody seemed to take it with a good sense of humor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had talked about it. The reason Jimbo, does things like that is, I mean, he doesn't care about the national conversation. He's saying those things to recruits and to his own players, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I got your back." So for sure. And hey, as predicted, is like he and Nick Saban both sort of got hand slaps by Greg Sankey. What they got sanctioned or whatever. Hey, stop talking about that. And then apparently Lane Kiffin was supposed to join Dan Patrick over the weekend to talk about it, but Dan Patrick says that Sankey put the kibosh on that and wouldn't let him come on and talk about it. So Sankey doesn't want that to dominate the conversations. But we're still looking forward to SEC Media Days
Yeah,
because
following along.
question number one, yes, yeah, Nick Saban.
And it was after we recorded our podcast, but Nick Saban did come out later in the afternoon with kind of a bit of an apology, not one I really buy
We
that
said that.
much.
I'm sorry if you took it that way. We
Yeah,
predicted that
sorry if you
too.
took it
That
that
and the
way. I didn't
and
mean
the
to
hand
single
slap.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to single out Texas A&M, but I
Yeah.
kind of did
I still, yeah,
exactly.
it doesn't. I stand by what I said, but I didn't mean to single them out. I meant to say everybody did it. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's not an apology, Jimbo. I mean, it was just the whole thing is ridiculous to be honest. But
yeah, and
off-season content, we gave you guys something to listen to, and I'm
yeah.
sure everybody enjoyed just that whole thing as much as we did.
Everybody needs a little May entertainment, right? Like it kind of spiced up all of last week and gave everybody something to talk about. A couple days. I don't think anybody even noticed that. We're kind of getting down to the countdown time, and we're hitting that point. So it kind of gave everybody a couple days closer to the season. You're right. Lane Kiffin's just been dying to get into this conversation however he can. He was on Twitter kind of responding to everything going on. It it was probably one of those things that killed him to sit on the sidelines and
Oh yeah, the fact he
uh,
wasn't the one. He's like, I wish Nick Saban would have called me out, and I could
yeah,
have
we could have
at
had
his
some
press
fun with that
conference.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Like
recruit better, Lane.
yeah, I would have gotten into that conversation. Yeah, be careful, Lane. He's probably got you next,
Yeah,
and then we'll
yeah.
come out and say I didn't
Don't
mean to
be trying to
single
land
out.
5 stars, all right? If you
Yeah,
land some 5 stars, Nick Saban's coming after you. Only Alabama's allowed to get multiple 5 stars. You could have one. One.
exactly.
We'll
You can
give you
get one. I'll
one.
give you one.
Yeah.
There's 32, and I'll spare you
Yeah.
one. So no, looking ahead though, it's a Memorial Day's coming up, and the A&M class, the rest of the A&M class is set to move in this weekend. Jamar Stewart has got back to us and said that he will be moving in Saturday morning, and expect quite a few guys to kind of be moving in, as you mentioned on the board throughout the weekend and Saturday, Sunday, and kind of get rolling with classes set to get underway next week. The time has kind of arrived to kickstart summer workouts. I'll have a story coming on the board uh, later this week, but Shamar Stewart definitely said he's itching to just get there at this point. He's been in contact with everybody who's been on campus, and I think those guys who didn't enroll early are just ready at this point to kind of get in and arrive.
Yeah, there should be 18 more guys coming over the weekend. Who are you looking forward to seeing the most? I mean, I know we can throw out the 5 stars, Walter Nolan. Okay, outside of Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, and LT Overton, the 3 5-star defensive linemen that'll be there. Who are you looking forward to seeing the most?
The one that I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing the most is Cam Dewberry, because I feel like he's of the linemen that are coming in, he's probably the guy that has the chance to make the earliest impact, and whether that be at guard or tackle, I think he's one, and Hunter Erb definitely as well. I think Hunter Erb is going to be an interesting guy that, once he can kind of get into a college weight room for a year and get going, that's really a guy I'm intrigued to see what he looks like, in games later in the season, maybe once he's had some time to get into the strength and conditioning program, and especially next spring. I think he's a guy that could benefit the most. Who's the guy you keeping your eye on?
I mean, the Dewberry one's interesting. I always think it's lazy comparisons when you compare a guy to a former teammate or something like that. But I mean, he could take that exact same Kenyon Green, track. Like they both started on varsity at Atascocita as
Yeah.
freshmen. When Dewberry was a freshman, Green was a senior, so they started opposite each other. And Dewberry maybe start inside as a true freshman. I don't know. I mean, that'd be big if he was able to do that, and then eventually move outside. So yeah, that would be fun. But I mean, I'm gonna sort of I stopped when I was naming 5 stars. I stopped right before Chris Marshall because that's my
Yeah.
answer. I mean, we talked about Evan Stewart all spring. I mean, he was the talk of spring already in the starting role. Chris Marshall is the bigger receiver that also has speed, still new to the game and raw. I mean, he's only played 2 seasons raw, but I mean, he's got the talent to stretch the field. I don't want to, I don't want to call him Mike Evans because that's not fair to anybody. But he's got that same sort of skill set: basketball player playing football, big kid. He can, he's got the speed. Can defenders can bounce off him. So he's the one. Like I am curious to see because Marshall struggled in the playoffs this year. They actually were upset in the first round by Barbers Hill because their district wasn't that great. So they weren't, the starters only played the first half. They only played in the second half for one game the entire regular season. It was the
Wow.
opening game. So the competition wasn't great there. So I'm curious to see how that translates. He already played in the Under Armour All American game and looked great all week in practice. Had a dominant game. So it's going to be really fun to watch him against elite SEC DBs in camp.
Yeah, I think the excitement is sky high around him, just coming off of what he did with the All American. And you're right on Cam Dewberry. I think it makes sense with him though, looking at Kenyon Green, just because that's a guy that's kind of been a big time mentor for him, and it just seems like those two have kind of been tied at the hip for the last couple of years.
I mean,
He's been
same
open
build and everything too.
and
Not
building
both of them
everything.
tackles for Tasasita. Not the longest guys, but they can play. They can play tackle if needed. Real versatile. So I mean, I went to Cam Dewberry's announcement when he announced for A&M. Kenyon Green was there to support him. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I think it's going to be one of those things like A&M fans remember back in the day. Hey, did you know Colt McCoy and Jordan Shipley are roommates? Every
yeah,
time Cam Dewberry is on, if he if he starts as a freshman, they're
yeah.
gonna. Hey, did you know he started alongside Kenyon Green as a freshman in high school? And
Oh, it's going to
we're
be
gonna hear
all
the
the
story from the national media a lot. Once everybody finds out about that. But yeah,
yeah.
that'll be
They're
fun
gonna
to
eat
watch
that
him.
story up. And the other one, I'm really curious to see, and maybe a name that doesn't get talked about as much is Smoke Bowie. I'm just fascinated because when the fall was kind of rolling on, you and I both heard about just all the ways that they could use them, and do they choose to use him at wide receiver? Do they use him at corner? Do they put him at punt back as a punt returner? I'm just fascinated to see what his kind of role looks like now that he's able to get on campus. He's been training all spring. Um, he's got the athleticism and the speed to make an early impact. It's just how quickly does he get adjusted to the college weight room and get in there. And so he's a guy I think too that I know A&M fans are really excited to watch him, and it's going to be fascinating to see what role he takes on immediately.
Yeah, he played both ways at the All American Bowl in January. Practiced mainly at receiver, but practiced both ways. Looked great on both sides of the ball. So shoot, I mean, who knows if maybe you're a week in, you're like, oh, there's some cornerback depth, but this kid in the slot, maybe Jimbo says, hey, go get a maroon jersey or whatever color offense is wearing. So yeah, it'll be fun to watch him.
Exactly, and then can they get him involved in special teams at all, and can he make an impact there
I'm
even
gonna say yes.
even
I'm gonna
earlier?
go out on a
I'm gonna go
limb
yes.
and
I'm
say
gonna say
they will.
yes.
Yeah, he will be
I'm gonna
involved
say
in
that
special
guy's gonna
teams.
be able to make an impact,
Yeah.
and then I thought it was interesting to. I know you posted on the board right before we started recording this. It's funny, speaking of the 5 stars for a second, Josh Pate kind of mentioned it. There's so much talk about Evan Stewart and the impact that he's going to make. Quietly, like Walter Nolan's not a guy when Texas A&M, kind of gets mentioned as who's going to make the early impact. Walter Nolan's name doesn't probably get brought up as much as it should, and he was just utterly dominant at the Under Armour All-American game. And it just speaks to how loaded the top of the class was. I mean, you look at just the defensive line class in general that A&M signed. If you look at Shamar Stewart and Walter Nolan and some of those guys, on basically any other roster, those guys would be top of the list as guys that can make an early impact. It
Oh
just
yeah.
speaks to how ridiculous the class that A&M signed was, and Josh had a lot to say about him being able to come in and be an impact player, potentially an early impact player. And I think it's going to be how quickly can he get up to speed, how quickly can Shamar Stewart get up to speed. But I expect both of those guys to make early impacts in the defensive line as well.
Yeah, so I mean, people aren't talking about Walter Nolan because he wasn't there in the
Yeah,
spring, and Evan Stewart was, but yeah, he's going to be in the rotation for sure. Uh, the 24/7 national desk, I think it was Chris Hummer put together the top 100 impact true freshmen across all of college football. True
yeah,
freshmen to know, and there were actually 4 Aggies in that top 100, and he had obviously Evan Stewart. He had Walter Nolan, despite the fact no one hadn't been there. And then he had Bryce Anderson, who, the safety, he
yeah,
was there in the spring, and Jake Johnson,
yeah,
with, Baylor Cup having transferred to Texas Tech. The starting job is open there for Jake Johnson to
yeah.
take, and he went a ways towards doing that in the spring. So yeah, I mean, it's the number one class for a reason. So it's not surprising that there are 4 of them listed, and there could be plenty of others. Once Gabe Dindy is completely healthy, I mean, he could be up there as well. Chris Marshall, as we talked about, just all these guys. I mean, there's a ton of guys that could end up like SEC all freshman team could end up with a lot of Aggies on it.
Yeah, and even Donovan Green, a guy like him, what he's going to be able to do when he comes in, because you mentioned that tight end position is kind of wide open heading into the summer. I know Jake Johnson's a guy that you and I both mentioned stood out during the time that we were able to see him during the spring. I think he was hampered by an injury late in the spring, but he was a guy that went on the field, really really impressed the coaches early on, and his size and speed is impressive.
What do you
Um,
think? What do you think? Theodore Orstrom's like introduction to American football. Yeah, he's been to camp, here, and
yeah,
I mean he looked really good at camp. We'll
he
give him
did.
that. But all of a sudden, he's going from playing against club teams in Sweden to going across the middle against SEC linebackers and defensive backs. Is there going to be, there's that show on ESPN, the hey rookie, welcome to the NFL. Is he going to have his like welcome to the SEC moment in
He didn't
camp, or
quite
maybe
get.
his first catch during the season when he's just like laid out by a safety who's 6'2", 220 pounds?
Yeah, he didn't get his moment like Edrin Cooper did during the All American Bowl when I think it was Moose Muhammad that he just absolutely laid out the middle of the field, and he didn't quite get that moment. Maybe it's Damani Richardson coming over the middle of, oh man,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
these
A big
guys are a bit
safety.
bigger than the
Then
guys
the
I'm coming
Swedish
across this
kids I'm
week.
used to playing against. Yeah,
Ooh, I
I
like
mean,
that.
I have no doubt that after we watched him in person, like Orstrom was one of the most impressive people we
Yeah,
saw at any of the camps last summer. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a you know even more so
adjustment.
than a small school kid coming from there. At least he's been around the game and has gone to camps and seen other players. I mean, Orstrom is I mean, this is all foreign to him. I didn't
Yeah.
even mean to. That wasn't even supposed to be
That was good. That was
foreign.
well
Yeah,
done. That was you can totally say you meant that, and I'll
yeah,
totally
yeah,
believe. No, he's gonna kind of get there and think, man, this is a little bit different than the YouTube YouTube videos.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
didn't quite
isn't
tell
he
me
the
this
one he said,
part.
yeah, he used to watch,
He
yeah, he
watched
watched
a bunch of
YouTube
YouTube
videos?
videos. It's gonna be like, man, this isn't quite the YouTube videos that
Yeah.
maybe he's been watching the Pulse though. I feel like he's a
Yeah.
Pulse. He's probably a Pulse viewer where he can get some a good look at what a practice looks like. But no, and even just he's gonna have to get used to like the practice structure and how quickly everything moves. I think that's the biggest thing that when you talk to people on the US side and they get in the first couple of weeks, um, one of the big things they mention is it's just the practice structure and how quickly everything moves. So there'll be a lot of
I mean,
adjustments for
all
him.
the freshmen are like that. I mean, that's I
Yeah.
think we always laughed that very first day of practice, as they're running out. This year it was Adazio who was the real vocal one, but I think I heard almost every newcomer's name just being yelled at, like, "Where are you?" It's just
Yeah. What are
everybody
you
else
doing? What?
they know where to
We're,
go, they've got
yeah.
everything, and all. These freshmen are just completely lost. So yeah, it'll be fun.
That's probably where they get the good stories out of it. Yeah. Steve Adazio asked me where the heck I was. I thought I was in the right spot, but I guess
Yeah, yeah.
not.
Turns out I
Um,
didn't realize everybody else wearing a white jersey. I got a maroon one.
yeah.
Maybe I'm in the wrong place.
I'm
So
over on offense and I'm supposed to
yeah.
be on defense. Oops. And then switching gears on that front to the recruiting side, that things are kind of picking up on that end as well, heading into the summer and guys kind of closed out their spring this past week. Had a chance to see a couple of them uh, on Thursday and Friday night, beginning with Peyton Bowen, and he's a guy that I know you and I have both kind of mentioned on the board at this point. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get back. No visits are set yet or anything like that for Peyton Bowen, and A&M's just continuing to kind of stay in the picture there. He's maintained he's still solid to Notre Dame, and A&M did get into the picture late with him, so there's still work to do there. But he really liked his first visit on campus and mentioned he kind of wants to get back down to see maybe a camp and what coaching what DJ Durkin looks like coaching and what TJ Russian looks like coaching because he didn't get to see a ton of that.
Oh no, I mean, so A&M offered pretty much right before he committed to Notre Dame.
Yeah,
The thing with him though is he was basically already committed to Notre Dame for
exactly.
months before that. It was not a surprise. Everybody knew that's what he was doing. So A&M, yeah, did have to come in and basically, even when they offered, he was already committed in his mind. They've made up a ton of ground, and I'd say they're the main ones to watch out for. And he's got former teammates on campus with Deuce Harmon and Eli Stowers. So, and those guys, talking are recruiting him to A&M, and he's able to see them, especially Deuce Harmon make an early impact. So, yeah,
Yeah,
he's a guy that I could see potentially ending up in the class. Especially there aren't a ton of safety targets that have really emerged. So he's one of the main guys
yeah.
that's out there, and so they're putting a lot of effort into him.
Yeah, and speaking of Deuce Harmon, he was out at the Geyer spring game, kind of hanging out with a couple other guys, and chatting with Peyton Bowen afterwards, and just saying hi. And you're right, just having his presence around the program, and that's a guy. When I first talked to Peyton Bowen, he mentioned that you know Deuce Harmon was a guy he talked to and was a friend, and Eli Stowers. So he's certainly got a couple ties to A&M, and just really seemed to like the hospitality that he got when he went down there, and mentioned he wanted to get back down there. And another guy that sticking in the secondary A&M is after hard is Malik Muhammad, and he's at one point he kind of
If I'm not mistaken, he's pretty shy and reserved
yeah
and
very
not
shy,
all that
very
confident in his abilities, right?
now.
We've talked
Yeah,
about Jonte Cook on here
you
before.
got to get him. You got
Before,
to get him out of his shell a little bit. You got to get Malik
but
Muhammad going.
he's very confident. We talked about Jonte Cook. He and Manny
Yeah.
Muhammad, well, he goes by Manny. He and Manny are good friends, and I'd say they're good friends for a reason.
Yeah, they're very good friends, and they talked about taking visits together, and I think the impact of one could definitely have an impact on the other, and that's certainly going to be something to watch. Now, Muhammad is a guy. I think this timeline is a bit fluid, to say the least. He kind of was looking at a late spring, early summer timeline, and then we talked this weekend, and he kind of admitted it's back to now like late summer, maybe fall
Signing day.
signing day. Yeah,
Early signing day.
yeah,
I won't guarantee that, but I'm gonna say 95% he's going to keep pushing it back and back
Yeah,
because
because
he's
he
gonna have
he
a
kind of
hard
mentioned, I'm
time
going to take a
deciding.
couple of official visits during the summer, and then I'm going to take a couple during the fall. And that's when he said, I'm kind of a late summer timeline, but it could get pushed back. So I'm
Early
with you. I
signing day.
think it's signing day. Yeah. And he's a very smart guy too. When we were talking just off to the side, I said, so what do you think of the Alabama Texas A&M feud?
Yeah, because
He
he's
said,
the one
I'm
we
not.
talked about. Those are he's
Yeah.
one of the guys those are his two main
Nope. He
schools
said,
that he
I am neutral on that one. I am not
yeah,
touching.
he's smart. You know what? We got to find Jonte Cook and ask him because
Yeah.
he won't be afraid to say something on the
Yeah,
record.
exactly. No, Malik Muhammad was like, nope, I am not touching that one. I am. He was laughing about it, but he's like, nope. He's like, I laughed at both sides. That's what I'll
Yeah.
say. So he was having a good time with it. But I think A&M is continuing to be very much in the mix there. Alabama is definitely another one, and one school he mentioned that was really working hard to get into this recruitment is Miami. They made a couple trips by his high school this spring. Mentioned the coaches were just, his coaches were just inundated with texts with the coaches trying to get into the building to come see him. So they've definitely made him a priority. And
I
but I
think he
think,
may have gone and see them. Remember, he was at IMG for one semester. He
yeah,
never ended up playing there, but he was there for one semester, and so a lot of the the coaches couldn't be on the road that spring, but I think he got around to a lot of those schools
I
when
think
he
he
was in
did, and
Florida.
he mentioned Miami as a school that he's got some long-standing relationships there, and guys that J- uh, Jaleel Ade, who was at Georgia before and now is at Miami and was recruiting him there, and Coach T. Rob went from Miami to Alabama, so the coaching staffs have all kind of switched amongst his top schools, and so he mentioned those two schools specifically as well. And I think it's just going to have somebody on the board ask where I see it kind of right now in the medium to high range, but there's just going to be so much that happens between now and the fall. And like you mentioned, it wouldn't be a shock at all to see him push this all the way back to the early signing period. And so that's for me why, I don't go all in on saying A&M's the front runner right now, but I think A&M's in a good spot heading into the summer, but there's still
Yeah,
probably a
he's
long
one
way
of
to
the
go.
guys that I have a crystal ball to A&M on him now. It's it's not incredibly high confidence on there, but yeah, I think A&M's in a good position. But yeah, he could end up a number of places. I would say that Alabama would be the main one to
Yeah, I
watch
agree.
going through the season. I think he's going to be watching that game on October 8th along with
Yeah.
pretty
He's
much
gonna
all the rest of any college football fans pretty closely.
I think it's a good bet. He'll probably be at that game if he can, if he's able to get out there. I think you'll see him out there, especially seeing those two schools going against each other. Another one I was out and seeing this weekend was Sean Cooper. I mentioned him over on our board. Runs a great program up in C4 Sports Performance. He is Ish Harris, his trainer. Put together a combine. He kind of looked at what IMG did with their pro day and put together a similar event this weekend with a lot of top players from Texas and Oklahoma. And two guys that weren't there that could end up being A&M targets were Davian Sims and By Job. Both of those guys had things kind of going on, but on By Job, I would expect him to probably. He hasn't been able to get to A&M yet, but I would expect this summer he's gonna try to get to A&M. Alabama and Georgia are the two right now that have made a great impression on him. But I think A&M.
For those that don't, if you don't follow, recruiting religiously, by Job he's lives in Norman. I believe he's from
Yep.
Senegal, so
Yep.
he's brand new to football. Was playing basketball before football and was just like, he's a guy that a lot of people notice on the basketball court. So just a freakishly athletic edge rusher that has all the potential in the world. And yeah, he's a guy that we saw last summer. He came to camp at A&M,
He
didn't
did
pick up
come
an
to
offer
camp.
right away, a little
Yeah.
surprisingly, but it didn't take A&M too long to offer him.
Yeah, they're very much in the mix there. So he's going to try to come back for a visit, for an unofficial visit. And I was told this summer is probably likely. And there's some other guys out there, some young players. Ravian Larry is a guy that is a young running back that has picked up some interest. Colton Yarbrough is a 2026 kid that already has an offer from Arkansas and
I think he's
Marion
got a
Porter.
sophomore safety that's a four-star that visited A&M,
And
right?
Kenyon
Kenyon
Kelly
Kelly?
is another Kenyon Kelly's another one that told me that he's planning to get back to A&M this summer. And Aaron Hampton as well is currently committed to Texas. He mentioned he talks to TJ Rushing every Sunday and has several
Just like
visits.
on his schedule on Sundays, like
Yeah,
we eat
it's
Sunday
like
dinner
like
and
a
then,
Sunday chat,
call with so
like a
yeah.
Sunday chat. We're gonna talk with
Yeah,
TJ
call yeah, it's
Rushing.
like how some people call their grandmas every Sunday. He calls
He
calls
calls
TJ
TJ
Rushing every
Rushing.
Sunday.
Yeah.
All right.
So I hope they've got a name for it. I hope they've got like
Oh, in the chat, yeah.
some creative name to kind of keep up with that. But no, I'd expect he said he was going to try to get back to A&M as well this summer. And then the notable news on Sunday evening, Anthony James, who was the first commit in the A&M class for the 2023 cycle, reopened his recruitment this weekend, announced that decision on Sunday evening, and said he plans to take several visits. He's taken visits to Miami, Washington already, and just a guy I think that wanted to get out and explore some more schools and explore his options. And um, we'll he's a guy that I think will continue to pick up attention, and had good things to say about Terry Price and the coaching staff there, but just wants to get out and fully kind of go through his process.
Okay, so this one wasn't incredibly surprising. I don't think it was surprising to people, at least VIP users on our board that have paid attention. I think both parties, him and A&M, sort of jumped into it a little early. He was offered from a ton of schools offered him based on his freshman film. It was really good. It was against other freshmen. He didn't play on varsity as a freshman, but it was against other freshmen, and he just picked up all those offers really early and made an early decision to commit to A&M. A&M's defensive line room now looks completely different than when he committed. There's also different types of players and things like that, but the depth chart looks way different. So I think he realized that he jumped into things a little early with making that commitment as a sophomore, I believe it was.
Yeah,
And
early.
then A&M's probably moved into things a little early, especially with what they were just able to do. I mean, it was a historic class overall, but the defensive line was the heart of the class they just signed. So, I mean, there probably won't be a ton of defensive linemen in this next class.
Yeah.
It'll be, or at least not as many as they had before. So, I mean, the guys that they sign are going to be, just ones that are definitely handpicked. So, like I said, both sides rushed into things. So it was not incredibly surprising. I wouldn't look for him to end up back in the fold of A&M. I think Washington is probably in a
Washington
good
is probably
spot.
right. Yeah.
He's been up to both Michigan schools quite often, and then Florida and Miami have talked to him. He did have official visits scheduled there, has pushed those back, but to both those schools. So the two Florida schools, the two Michigan schools, and Washington and maybe Texas are ones to watch there. But it'll probably be best for A&M, best for Anthony James wherever he does end up, and it'll be fun watching his career.
Yeah, he's a extremely nice kid. For those, we get a chance to get out and talk with them quite a bit, and he's an extremely nice kid. And so he's the type of kid, I mentioned this on the board, you root for him, wherever he ends up, is you hope the best for him and that he can find a good spot. And I think the other important thing to note, and one of the things he points out often, is when he committed to A&M, he committed during that dead period. So he hadn't even had the chance to really get out and see a lot of schools and meet a lot of coaching staffs. And, I think he felt really strongly about where his relationship was with Elijah Robinson and Terry Price, and felt really comfortable with them. And so that was something when he did decide to make his decision. But he hadn't been out to see a lot of schools. And so now, as he's got to see a lot of schools, I think like you mentioned, I mean, A&M signing 8 defensive linemen this past cycle, they've got just a loaded defensive line room. And, it's probably for the best in terms of playing time and all that for him to also look at what other options he's got. So, he's a guy that's going to be fun to watch where he ends up. So with that, we're going to switch gears after the break and talk a little at Texas A&M baseball, who took home an SEC West title this weekend and is gearing up for the SEC tournament. We'll be back right after the break to talk a little more about that and where A&M goes from here heading into postseason play. All right, welcome back to the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. Brian, another series win for Texas A&M over Ole Miss, and this one helped them clinch the SEC West crown. Their first time winning the SEC regular season, SEC West regular season title. They won the SEC tournament back in 2016. Will be the number 2 seed in the SEC tournament, and have kind of now put themselves. They're up to number 5 in the rankings, moved up one spot from a week ago, and are really now in good position to host a super regional if they get themselves there with a couple wins in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, so your first round game is going to be either Florida or South Carolina. That won't do much to move the needle. But the
Yeah,
second round game, if everything holds to form, would be against Arkansas. So if they were able to get, a win, say against Florida and a one against Arkansas, it probably wouldn't even matter the rest of that tournament. I think that would, especially with Arkansas being one of those teams that's also in contention for a top 8 national seed. If they were able to get those wins, I think that would do it. But I want to say the most impressive. This team is just a good all around team. They won the series this weekend with, I mean, just without mincing words, not good, bad starting pitching. Nathan Detmer did not last 5 innings. I mean, this is his third straight outing where he hasn't gone 5 innings. They won the opener. After Nathan Detmer, they keep putting TBA as the 2 other starters for each of the weekend series because they don't even have a true second starter. I mean, it
yeah,
was, Micah Dallas and Ryan Prager started the year. Well, Dallas is now in the bullpen. He'll start in the SEC tournament, but is not what he was the very first SEC pitcher of the week this year, but has sort of regressed. The starting pitching wasn't good. Saturday, it was who'd they go with? They went with Wyatt Tucker for the second time. He went 2 innings.
yeah,
Like I said, Detmer struggled. Ryan Prager came back in, didn't go 5 innings on in the finale on Saturday, and A&M still won 2 of 3. I mean,
yeah.
because these bats keep coming through clutch. Joseph Menifee had 2 of the 3 wins, or pick. I guess both of the wins. He got the victory in both of those. Jacob Polish has come on again for long relief, and the bullpen has just been really good. It was not good at all on in the middle game that they lost, but other than that, I mean, it's been really good, and that was the Achilles heel early in the season where starting pitching
Mhm.
was awesome. Now starting pitching struggling, the bullpen's great, so everybody's stepping up when they need to, and I mean, so it's crazy how different this team is than it was at the beginning of the year, and just how just clutch they are.
Yeah, and you look at, the first game of the series, just starting there, you jump out to a 7-0 lead through 2 innings, and that feels like you've given Nathan Detmer all you pretty much need to kind of roll through. And you know, A&M was kind of dancing in and out of trouble in that game with it in the bullpen. And that's the one thing I will say about the bullpen in that game specifically. They got in some jams, but made pitches when they needed to make them. They with the tying runners, up at the plate or anything like that. They managed to just get an out when they needed it, and they had to work a lot of innings this weekend, and um, then and now to turn around and have the SEC tournament. That's going to be a big one against Arkansas, and they just need to get through that game and find a way to win it. And you're right, we need to get our RPI king on here, the guy who had so much to say about Jim Schlossnagle last week in his article. We need to get him back on here to discuss RPI about.
No, he's
Him.
he's moved on. Haven't you heard Arch Manning has
Yeah,
a
he's on
huge
the Arch
deal?
Manning sweepstakes.
Okay. So I mean, I can't believe that he's not okay with A&M, you know, let's say A&M did cancel the Incarnate Word game
Yeah,
because of RPI, if that is what happened, allegedly. Um, he's not okay with that, but he just throws out that, oh man, I mean, Arkansas is offering Arch Manning 2.5 million. So you're okay with just in your what you're saying, just straight paying recruits,
yeah.
but heaven forbid a team cancels one meaningless late season game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always
And it's
entertaining
it's
on Twitter.
Incarnate World, right? It's Incarnate
Incarnate
World.
World and the Cardinal. So he
The
was
Cardinal, yeah.
he made it a point. He's like, well, I googled it and it said Cardinal, but several people have said it's Cardinal, so I've changed it. If you go
Yeah.
to their website, I mean, I believe
It's front
their
and center.
the URL is like uiwcardinals.com
Yeah.
and then or dot edu or whatever, and then yeah, it has a giant Cardinals logo. We went and learned. It's like, So I mean, Googling, just go to their website. I mean, it's on there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was some good entertainment.
That
I
was
don't.
some, that was some, last week just had a whole lot of good
Yeah.
entertainment. But
Also, everybody else followed suit. You know how many? Ole Miss canceled a game, didn't they? Right.
yeah,
So
Ole
they
Miss
did. They
canceled, and
came
I
into
mean,
the A&M series without having a game. So
and look at this weekend, for example. A&M dropped a couple spots in the RPI. Meanwhile, they got 2 wins out of it last week. They dropped a couple spots, and Ole Miss drops 2 of 3 and rises a spot in the RPI. So again,
yeah,
full system just
the RPI doesn't. Okay. It's not RPI. The computer formula has been
yeah,
around forever. It's not out to get A&M, but
yeah,
it does need to be adjusted. I mean,
it
because
does need to be.
it's ridiculous that you can win a game and it actually like hurts you. And in
Yeah,
A&M, even if they hadn't played this weekend, they would have dropped just because some of their former opponents lost
yeah,
over the weekend, so their strength of schedule dropped, and that's what caused A&M to fall 2 spots. So yeah, it's just ridiculous, but
yeah.
it's
But
still humans that make the decision for who's the host and who's the top 8 seeds, and they're going to be hard pressed, even with A&M at the 20 or 22 in the RPI.
yeah,
They're going to be hard pressed to keep A&M out of one of those top 8 spots, especially if A&M is able to get 2 wins in this tournament.
no doubt. And I think that's the thing. If they winning will take care of a lot of this business. And the one thing I did like about it, especially so that first game they get off, couldn't have asked to get off to a better start. Dylan Rock with a homer. Dylan Rock was fantastic this weekend.
Yeah,
Just
somebody
too
changed
big,
the Wikipedia page. I believe they said the Oxford, Mississippi Wikipedia page said mayor, and they
yeah.
changed it to Dylan Rock. It's probably back. It's probably back to whoever is the
But
actual mayor now. But yeah.
love it. And A&M falls behind 5-2 in the third game of the series, despite jumping out to a 1-0 lead early on. Couldn't have asked for a better start in that one either. Trevor Warner opens the game with a triple, comes home to score one batter later, but A&M's the pitching kind of faltered and they fall behind 5-2, and then just explode offensively. Dylan Rock had a homer, it's tied up at 5, and then Brett Minnick comes up with a grand slam to make it 9-5, and from there A&M took care of business and was able to close out with their 7th straight series win, which is just really impressive to kind of think about where this team has gone over the past month and a half. And like you said, kind of put themselves, everything's in front of them. Everything that they need to do to kind of get that super regional spot is it's all in front of them, and they really do control their own destiny in terms of if they can just win a couple games in the SEC tournament. They've put themselves exactly where they need to be. But I do agree, the starting pitching especially is going to need to be better, especially if this team wants to make a run in the NCAA tournament. The starting pitching is probably the big thing that's going to have to get better, because the bats for the most part have been largely really consistent over the past couple of weeks, and picked up the pitching, and the bullpen finding some guys that they can depend on has been huge.
So yeah, for sure. What I'm really looking for though is so the NCAA tournament selection show is Monday, a week from today, or a
Yeah.
week from yesterday, depending on when you're listening to this. Monday the 30th. It's going to be at 11 a.m. Central. Okay, A&M is going to have a 1 seed, no matter what. There will be one of the 16 1 seeds. They're going to host a regional. So who's going to be the number 2 seed in that regional? They try and do it. You can't have somebody from your conference in your regional, and they try and do it geographically. So basically, what that means is a team from the Big 12. A team from
Yeah.
the Big 12 will be the 2 seed. So is it going to be? It had been. They kept predicting TCU, which that would be Jim Schlossnagle against his former team. Also, TCU was eliminated A&M like 4 years, like
Yeah.
3 or 4 recent years. They've eliminated them either in the College World Series or Super Regionals or Regionals. So TCU now they're projected as a top, as a 1 seed. If it's not TCU, Texas
Probably that team
Longhorns.
over in Austin.
Texas Longhorns, yeah, will likely be. They could potentially work their way into hosting as well, but if they do, then it would maybe knock TCU out of that spot. So it'll almost assuredly be one of those 2 teams. So it's going to be a fun, assuming number 1 and 4 seed play and number 2 and 3 play to open things. So assuming both teams win, that would put game 2 on Saturday, early afternoon, with A&M versus either Texas or TCU, and either way, it'd be a fun little matchup that I would bet the Raggies out there, are ready, are going to be ready for out there at Bluebell.
Oh, they definitely are. There's just a ton of interesting storylines to watch, and where the seeding kind of goes. And um, there was a question on the board about how much impact the SEC tournament or conference tournaments in general are going to have coming off what happened with basketball. I expect a lot still will be decided by what happens this weekend, and especially if you get an A&M Arkansas matchup or what happens in the Big 12 with Texas and TCU. It's going to be fascinating to watch. So with the regular season coming to an end, Brian, what do you think the ceiling is for this team? Where do you think, if you look at where this team is right now and of kind of a full body of work through the regular season, where do you think this team is right now?
I mean, it's hard to really say because it is, depending on how the pitching goes. This team is good when you have a series. They won the last 7 series of the year. They won 2 out of 3, at least 2 out of 3. They won. They only swept one of those, so it is a team that's beatable. And until you get to the super regionals and then the final of the College World Series, it's not a 2 out of 3 format. So, that's going to be interesting because they're capable of beating anybody, in one game, but they're also, capable of potentially losing. But this is a team that's proven it can win series. So if it gets in those super regionals and then if they make a run in the College World Series, they can battle anybody at 2 out of 3. So I mean, the ceiling is the title. Nobody would have expected that, and they're not going to be the favorites. That would be Tennessee and Oregon State would be the 2 main favorites. But A&M could be a trendy pick. For people if they're looking for potential upset, a good team still, but an upset. It's not out of the question A&M wins this thing.
Yeah, for me, it's that super regional and beyond, because when you look at postseason play, oftentimes it comes down to getting hot at the right time, and A&M also, even though the pitching has struggled a little bit, they've always kind of been able to win game 1 of these series and get off to a good start in the series. And so when you look at being able to throw out a guy like Nathan Detmer, if he's able to, kind of click back into gear, A&M is going to be very formidable to go against. And where they are now, defense has been better for the most part, but they're going to be a tough out and come postseason play just because of just what they've been able to do over the last 7 weeks. They're playing as well as anybody, but you're right. The pitching is still a concern, and that's probably why they're still beatable for sure.
No, for sure. You talk about a tough out. One team that was not exactly a tough out this weekend, the A&M softball team.
Yeah, the A&M softball team.
They play. We talked about it last week. They played the number 1 seed in the whole country, Oklahoma. Oklahoma had 2 losses all year. And the first, the non-elimination, the first time they lost 3-2. They almost came back and won.
Yeah.
Then beat Minnesota. Came back in the elimination game to beat Minnesota, and so going into Sunday, they had to get 2 wins over Oklahoma. They ended up losing 20-0.
20-0.
20-0 in the so that didn't happen. 20-0, and 20-0 was apparently good enough to
get a mercy
cause
rule.
a change. Yeah, cause a change in head coaches for the first time in 26 years. Is that how long Joe Evans was around?
26 years, and A&M released a statement Monday morning announcing that they had decided not to renew Joe Evans' contract. So
yeah, it was the same thing with Childress. I don't think Bjork likes firing coaches. He's just like, no, we didn't fire you. We just
didn't renew your contract.
You again. Yeah. But it's hard for coaches to recruit if they don't have a contract. So I mean, everybody sort of saw the writing on the wall. If Joe Evans would have had a Women's College World Series year, but not number. They finished 12th out of 13 teams in the SEC, and then lost 20-0 in her final game.
And of note, I mean, she did pick up her 1,000th win this weekend.
No, 1,300th win.
1,300th.
1,300th. Yeah, I mean, so that's 50 wins. 50 wins a year. If I just did that math,
yeah,
I
think so. Yeah, 1,300. Yeah, I misspoke there. And and the other thing about it is in the statement it kind of mentioned, the A&M should be in a position to host a super regional and advance the College World Series on an annual basis with the facilities that they have, the conference they're in. And so you could kind of get where he was, where the thought process was behind the decision. Because let's be honest, A&M backed into the NCAA tournament and coming off a tough SEC play, and it was probably time to make a change and get a new voice in there. And the other part about it that probably helps is looking at the success that A&M just had on the baseball side. making a change after and getting a new voice in there. It's probably going to be a similar thought process on this front. I don't think they're going to shy away from going after a big target. If we kind of learned anything about the way Bjork operates, I think they're going to certainly look at coaches with experience. And
I mean, that's what he does. So Schlossnagle had experience, and now her name is escaping me, but
Tony Taylor, Tony.
yeah, the women's basketball coach, they stole a really good coach from Georgia that has experience. They're not gonna, he's not looking for assistants that could be good. He's looking for proven, and so I would expect that in softball as well. I'm not a softball expert by any means. I'm not even a softball amateur by any means, so I can't tell you who the good coaches are. But I think A&M will get one. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the hire will be lauded nationally.
Yeah, I think we can go out on a limb and say that the press conference, they're going to find the right person that's going to be the right.
Well, they always say that, but I think it actually people will believe.
Yeah, people will be lauding it. And,
I mean, shoot, in football, when they're like even everybody follows everything, it's like you got your seventh choice. Like, don't try and lie to me and be like, we got the man for the job that we wanted all along. We've known it. We saw you interviewed. We saw him turn down the job, but you don't see that behind the scenes in softball, but I think it will actually be one.
Yeah, it'll be lauded.
That people will talk about. It's like, hey, that's a great hire.
Yeah,
whoever it is,
no doubt. And just sticking on, I guess it's not just football where they steal folks from Georgia. The women's basketball team kind of raided the Georgia signing class and took them all to bring them all to Aggieland.
Yeah,
so
I believe that they flipped every single signee.
Yeah, they
flipped every single signee. Yeah, which is, I mean, that's tough. I mean, it's not fun to be Georgia right now and in women's basketball, but hey, A&M will take it. And that's tough when they do just all follow the coach. But that probably helped, her contract negotiations when she's like, hey, look, I got a really good class, and I bet some of them might want to play for me. So.
Yeah, I bet the number 2 player in the nation. I bet, or the number 2 player in this cycle, or I think she was top 3.
Yeah,
I can she may be attainable. We may be able to get her over here.
I have a feeling. Yeah,
I have a feeling. So that may have helped as well. But no, I have no doubt. They're gonna swing high, and they're gonna swing for the fences. Looking at the softball hire. So I think the hire.
Stay tuned to Gig 'em 247.
Stay tuned.
Softball, all this. No, okay. I make that joke, but I tell you what. Sam, the moderator, Sam Smith, slamming Sam on there. He is tuned in, and he shared just a little bit of insight that he expects a hire that's going to be like similar to the women's basketball hire, that it's and he expects it to happen relatively quickly. I would wait, assuming they are going to hire a coach that's had some success. That means that coach is probably still in the postseason.
Yep.
With the heading into super regionals, but once that's over. He expects A&M to move pretty quickly, so that'll be, we joke, but there actually is, if you are interested in women's
do have a softball. Yeah,
we've got an insider, so
we do.
Come join us.
And speaking of Sam, he's also his live updates on the men's golf team who are heading. The women's golf team is currently playing in the NCAA championships on Monday. If you listen to this. In a good spot to advance to match play, provided they have a good final day. So Sam's had updates on all of that as well. The men's golf team will be heading to Arizona as well for the NCAA championships that'll begin next week. They also advanced with I believe they finished third in the regional that was in Bryan. So Sam's got all the updates on that as well. And yeah, do you think the softball hire will be released at about 7:15 a.m. again, like the basketball one was?
Yeah, please, and also yes, and we joked about it off the air. It's been enough time now. The basketball team released an official signee, right during Jimbo Fisher's press conference last week. Come on, guys, we don't let it get lost. But yes, A&M, if the SADs are listening, wait until at least like 9:15 a.m. to release a new hire.
I kind of got the email about Kalen Robinson signing with A&M probably 15 minutes after Jimbo's press conference finished, and I was thinking, come on, let's wait a little bit. Let's have Jimbo have his moment. He's going to be everybody's going to be talking about Jimbo the rest of the day. So, but no,
A&M if anybody didn't know, Kalen Robinson signed. Like Because it may have gotten lost last week with you guys.
It got lost a bit in the shuffle, but he is officially on board. So the final signee, the final transfer they're waiting to sign is Dexter Dennis, and we'll make that official. I think they are that group should be moving in as well. Right around Memorial Day. That's usually the time.
School starts. The summer one session starts a week from Tuesday, so that would be, I think, the 31st.
Yep.
So so this coming weekend is when pretty much everybody will move in because people go to summer school now. So
yep, they'll all be set, and so we will have all the latest on that and where everything is standing, and yeah, stay tuned for that softball announcement whenever that comes out, when things kind of progress in the NCAA tournament. And
we'll do a special podcast. We'll break it down. The X's and O's, an hour and a half podcast. Maybe we'll break it down.
We'll get the whiteboard out behind. We'll kind of go through, shifting, and we'll get into the debate about shifting and where folks are shifting, and we'll dive into that debate and plenty more entertainment. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I won't say see you for the rest of the week, because who knows what the rest of the week. Last week we kind of had our emergency podcast. Don't expect any emergency podcasts this week, I don't think, but stay tuned for all the latest on Gig'em 247. If you like our videos, be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube to get a notification every time a new video arrives, and give us a 5-star review on Spotify and iTunes, and subscribe on there as well to get a notification when a new podcast drops on there as well. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with the latest in with players arriving on campus. It's Memorial Day next Monday, so maybe we'll have to do it on Tuesday or something like that. So we'll iron out that schedule and go from there. So with that, have a good week, everybody.